If your calendar is full and your mind is fuller, and the thought of an empty afternoon makes you reach for your phone before you've even felt the boredom, I want you to consider this. You're not addicted to being busy. You're afraid of the silence and of what tends to rise up in it. We wear busyness like a badge now. Ask anyone how they are, and the answer is rarely good or tired. It's busy, said with a kind of exhausted pride. We treat a packed schedule as proof that our life matters, that we're needed, that we're moving. And so we fill every gap. The queue, the lift, the 10 quiet minutes before sleep, all of it backfilled with noise, with scrolling, with one more task. We call it being productive. But I want to ask a harder question. What happens in the moments you refuse to leave empty? And why are you so determined never to find out? Think of your mind like a pond. All day, the activity stirs it up. The meetings, the messages, the endless small decisions, and the water stays cloudy, churned, the sediment swirling so thick you can't see the bottom. Busyness keeps the pond stirred. And there's a strange comfort in that, because a cloudy pond hides whatever's resting on the floor of it. The moment you go still, the water begins to clear. The sediment settles, and slowly, you start to see all the way down to the things you've been too busy to look at. The grief you skated past. The question about your life you don't want to answer. The feeling you've been outrunning since who knows when. That's why the silence feels dangerous. It isn't empty at all. It's the moment the water clears and the bottom of the pond comes into view. Busyness was never really about getting things done. For a lot of us, it's about keeping the water stirred so we never have to look at what's down there. Let me tell you about someone. I'll call him Daniel. Daniel was the most productive person anyone knew. First one in, last one out, side projects, a packed weekend, a phone that never left his hand. People admired his energy. What they couldn't see was that Daniel hadn't sat alone with himself, properly, in years. The second a quiet moment opened up, a wave of unease would rise in his chest and he'd reach for something, anything, to fill it. He didn't even notice he was doing it. He just thought he was a hard worker. Then Daniel got sick, the kind of sick that puts you flat on your back with nothing to do but stare at the ceiling. And for the first time in years, the water went still. And everything he'd been outrunning rose up to meet him, all at once. The truth was, he'd built a wall of activity around a grief he'd never let himself feel, and a question he'd been avoiding about whether the life he was sprinting through was even the one he wanted. Lying there, unable to run, he finally felt it. And here's the part he didn't expect. It didn't destroy him. It moved through him. The thing he'd spent a decade fleeing turned out to be survivable. And on the other side of it was a stillness he'd never known he was allowed to have. There's real science under this. Researchers ran a now famous study where they left people alone in a bare room with nothing to do for 15 minutes and gave them one option, a button that would deliver a mild electric shock to themselves. People had said beforehand they'd pay money to avoid that shock. And yet, alone with their own thoughts, a large share of them chose to shock themselves rather than simply sit there. Read that again. People preferred physical pain to the experience of an unoccupied mind. The discomfort of silence is real, and it's wired deep. But here's what the study also quietly proves. It's not the silence that's hurting you, it's your resistance to it, the flinch away from your own inner world. So if you've been outrunning the quiet, here are 3 things I want you to understand about what's really going on. First, the urge to fill every gap is not a character flaw. It's avoidance, dressed up as virtue. There is nothing noble about a schedule so full it leaves no room to feel. Productivity can be the most socially acceptable way there is to run from yourself, and the world will applaud you the whole time you do it. The first step is just to call it what it is. Second, what you're afraid of in the silence is almost always smaller than the fear of it. The mind makes the unfelt feeling enormous, a monster in the dark. But feelings, even the heavy ones, are not infinite. They rise, they crest, and if you let them, they pass. The grief that took Daniel 10 years to avoid took an afternoon to feel. The avoidance was the long sentence. The feeling was the release. Third, you don't have to face all of it at once. You just have to stop sprinting. Start small. 5 minutes in the morning with no phone. A walk with no headphones. A held gaze out the window instead of a reach for the screen. Let the water clear a little at a time. The point isn't to drain the pond. It's to learn you can look at the bottom of it without drowning. So stop mistaking your full calendar for a full life. You were never addicted to being busy for its own sake. You were just keeping the water stirred so you'd never have to see the bottom. But the bottom of the pond isn't your enemy. It's where the truth of your life is resting, waiting patiently for you to be still enough to find it. The writer Pico Iyer once said that in an age of acceleration, nothing can be more exhilarating than going slow, and in an age of distraction, nothing is so luxurious as paying attention. The silence you've been fleeing isn't a void, it's the most honest room in your house. And the day you can sit in it without reaching for anything is the day you finally come home to yourself. You were never too busy. You were just afraid to be still. So let the water settle. Whatever's down there has been waiting a long time to be seen.